Hey, I'm Bashir Salahuddin.
And I'm Diallo Riddle.
And you're tuned in to Where's the Buzz TV?
Where is it? It's here. I'm your co-host, Diallo Riddle.
And I'm Bashir Salahuddin.
And we're here to talk about the issues affecting the Afro-American community.
That's right, the things that affect our people today.
Okay, first of all, you guys.
That's not right.
I really set the wrong tone.
Sorry.
I really love the show.
Thank you very much. That means a lot.
Episode 3 is by far my favorite, and that's
Really?
what the.
Dude, how many episodes you see?
I saw the 5 that they gave us.
Wow, nice.
My wife plays Officer Turner, so
Yes.
I'm sure she'd love hearing that. You know, you loved it so much.
Yes, especially because it spoke about gentrification, which is like a rapid
Thank you.
thing that's affecting a lot of major cities and Black families. And just
What's the name of the white couple in episode 3? Is it Henry and
Henry and
Sarah or something like that? Yes, exactly. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry.
And just to see just that talked about how it's happening in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, is gentrification as rapid in Chicago as it is in like New York and DC?
I'm familiar with how rapid it is in New York and DC. I think that is absolutely something that when you're in Chicago, people are talking about it and they're concerned about it. They're worried about getting pushed out of their houses. They're worried about, one thing Chicago does actually, which is really unique, is that we have suburbs that unfortunately sometimes are more tumultuous, but particularly the south suburbs. We have an episode about that, episode 9, where we talk about being from Harvey, because a lot of the disaffected people who got pushed out were actually shunted down to the south suburbs. And so there's this economic disparity that happened in Chicago that was sort of then picked up and moved en masse somewhere else as they move other people in. I think it's something that, I'm not even sure yet what the answer will be, but it's certainly something that, as I was saying, to many people, I'm just now sort of trying to figure out more and more what our place is in terms of the doing work in Chicago that uplifts the community. Because I think the show is one thing, and it's really important because I think the show helps us revise our image and it helps show people that we're super funny and hilarious. But then also there's got to be some on the ground stuff that we're doing when the camera's not on in Chicago, and I'm really excited to start doing that.
And to your brothers, his brother's the star of the show.
Yeah, he also has an organization too.
He's starting an organization that's going to promote working in the industry, but like working behind the scenes, like because there's so many jobs that people never see. Like, of course, you see the actors and you hear about the directors, but from the electrical grips to the people who work the cameras are DPs.
The best boy, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Whatever that job.
Still trying to find out what that is. But yeah, like we feel like if you tell people, because when we were shooting in Chicago, people would come up and they would ask like, "Oh, what does that person do? What does that person do?" And we really want to educate.
And why you on my block?
And can I get some money for you all shooting on the sidewalk out in front of my house?
Because I can't go home right
now. We do seek to educate people in terms of like, these are the jobs that you may not know are industry jobs, and by the way, unionized jobs, so like you get paid really well. I think some of the people who make some of the most stable living, I'll say, in our industry are the people who work behind the cameras in various capacities. So his brother's taking the lead and sort of educating people on what those jobs really are.
But yeah, just to the point about gentrification, it's definitely mentioned on our show, and we handle it with humor. And as you see with our show, we handle a lot of tough things with humor. Yeah. Because I think that particularly as Black folk, we often need to find ways to handle things with humor, because otherwise, you just would be devastated.
You laugh to keep from crying.
Exactly.
Yeah. I really like that because you guys really take regular life and you make it hilarious. Like,
thank you.
The whole Jordan fiasco.
Hilarious. I'm not a sneakerhead, and that's not even true. I'm trying to become a sneakerhead. I actually bought recently 3 pairs of Nikes, so I'm not as
you, Rockefeller.
One of our
amazing. How many? Couple of bones.
I bought 2 pairs. You know what it is? I'm gonna be honest. Like, my family is working class, and when I was in high school, we didn't get any of those fancy shoes. So I'm sort of now able to buy those shoes, and I'm buying them all now. And I'm like, it's a little sad that I'm buying shoes that I wanted when
for
I
all
was in
those
high
nights
school.
you went to bed with no shoes.
Those Air Max, I got some white on white Air Max that are pretty badass. Yeah, I got some Jordan 5s that, oh man.
But even me growing up in Atlanta, I remember there was a store downtown called Walters, and Walters was like the place all the new shoes came out. So people would line up outside of Walters, and anytime you passed Walters and it was like a line all the way circling around the block, you knew like, oh, it must be the Jordan's day. So we've always said, like, wouldn't it be fun to do an episode where like it's all based around the chaos that happens when the new Jordans drop.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah. And I also like that episode because we treat the sneakerheads almost like zombies from The Walking Dead. Like, it's just like, I smell Jordans! And they all go running this way. So, like, it's fun.
So why did you guys decide to censor this around Reynolds-town?
I love that you pronounced it that way.
One of the actors on the show, Quincy Young, who plays Q, who actually plays the boss at RTO, used to work at Rent-A-Center. He worked there for probably 10 years. Mm-hmm. What it is that we were trying to make a show that was really authentic. We wanted Chicago to speak for itself. So both in front of and behind the camera, you have real Chicagoans. There are people who are just bus drivers who just, we like, you're hilarious, come do this line. There are extras that we gave lines to who really let the people from the city represent themselves. And so at the core of that is, our friend Q, who worked there for 10 years, really helped us understand that business a lot. But also the other thing about that business is that it requires, with Rent-A-Center, they drop off and they pick up furniture, right? And we love that because we said, oh, that's great. It'll get us all over the city. Because what we really want to do is say it's a workplace comedy, but our set is the entire city of Chicago. It's the south side, the west side, the north side, it's all the sides. And that business allows us to kind of go everywhere and to meet everybody. So we really thought it was a great way, because the show in some ways is a love letter to the city of Chicago, the city that I love, that I grew up in. And the Rent-A-Center the rent-to-own allows us to like go around.
But it really is centered in the south side. Like this man, to his credit, because he grew up on the south side, there was one point where like we were going over locations.
Yep.
And he's like, hey, I think we're shooting a little bit too much of the west side for the south side. Like that's the degree of authenticity.
Yeah, we could shoot the west side for the west side,
specificity,
or the north side for the north side. Yeah. Obviously, when you.
But by the way, even as a person who didn't grow up there, I would say the west side doesn't look exactly like the south side. No, like when you shoot on the south side, it looks different.
Yeah, but even within the south side, there are different neighborhoods that look different, and that's actually a fine point because it's really, 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 really important to me that we don't elevate any part of Chicago above any other part of Chicago. For me, South Side is a state of mind. Our characters go on the north side, they go on the west side, they have fun on all these places, they have fun downtown. They just bring a South Side mentality with them. But we're certainly not saying, and I don't want anybody, and I think when people watch the show, they'll see we uplift the whole city. There's no sense of like, well, the South Side is better than me. I'm sure there are people who think that, but we don't do that on our show because my mother's from the west side. I mean, we just love the whole city of Chicago. South Side is where I'm from, so that's our starting point.
And I want you guys to speak on like the importance of showing this because like outside of this and The Chi, there's really not other TV shows I can think of that.
Well, you have all the Dick Wolf shows, but those are all like very difficult, like procedural.
There's fire over there.
Chicago Fire, Chicago Law, Chicago Law Fire.
But like I'm talking about us focusing mostly on the Black community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like the last time we saw that was Family Matters.
Yeah. Wait, what was the other one? Well, Family Matters was in that's right, that was Chicago.
That was Chicago. And then The Chi.
Yeah.
And
it's us and The Chi is like a nice 1-2 punch. I mean, we're a comedy. We love being a comedy. We're a hard comedy. It's really important for us to be a comedy. We really wanted to make a show that, Diallo and I will often joke that Black people have poignant lives. So sometimes when we come home, it's fun not to watch poignant things on television. And I know I have friends who spend all the time watching like Family Guy and The Simpsons and Rick and Morty and whatever. They just love comedies. And so with us in The Chi, you get a nice 1-2 punch. They are certainly a great drama, and they deal with a lot of issues, and we also deal with issues.
And we love Lena. Like we think what Lena's doing over there is fantastic.
It's almost like a companion thing.
And I think what's cool is that like nowadays you live in a world where like you can have 2 shows with Black people in Chicago, and they don't have to be compared.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Totally. They can be totally different.
Because it's her voice and her show and her vision, and ours.
And our voice is always going to be like we're just clowns.
We're goof ass clowns. I'm trying to say
we can dress it up as much as we want, but Lena and Ava and there are a lot of people are gonna do what they and like we're just gonna make something silly.
Yeah, and it's a good balance.
Exactly.
So what do you guys hope that this show will provide for people that aren't from Chicago or never experienced Chicago for themselves?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you very much. I think this show will help us begin to reshape the narrative, particularly around the South Side. Chicago, to some degree, is interesting because it's known as a super funny city, but the people that get that reputation are on the North Side. It's the Blues Brothers, it's Ferris Bueller's Day Off, it's The Breakfast Club, the actual movie The Breakfast Club. When you think about comedy, the South Side is not in conversation. And yes, the South Side is a rich comedy tradition, from Robin Harris to Bernie Mac, all these wonderful comedy clubs. And so hopefully we can reshape the narrative to America, and America can go, hey, wait a second, the South Side is hilarious. You know, the West Side is hilarious. Black Chicago, which is what I call it sometimes shorthand, Black Chicago, is hilarious. And now when we think of Chicago, we won't just think about the things we see from the news or the things we hear from sometimes a politician will denigrate the city. We'll think about Chicago as this place. We saw this hilarious episode about people trying to buy Jordans or somebody trying to sell popcorn in front of a movie theater and not get caught. You know, whatever that is, because everybody in Chicago has a side hustle. It don't even matter how good the job is, people got side hustles. And so hopefully that's our hope for the show.
The Obamas might even have a side hustle if they're
got about 15 side hustles.
In Hyde Park.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They just got a Netflix thing. They got a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, they got all kinds of hustles.
They got big side hustles.
Yeah, they got big ventures. So hopefully.
And by the way, Obama, hilarious.
Yeah.
We wrote for him while we were still at Fallon. Like, you know, the man needed no coaching on comedic timing, and that's probably due to his South Side roots.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll reshape the narrative. Hopefully we'll help Chicago see itself in a better light. Really, hopefully, the people from Chicago will start to even more so champion those positive things and those things that uplift all of us. And then also, you know, outside of the city, again, we can hope to reshape the narrative. And hopefully have a lot of fun and be around for a very long time.
Yeah.
And last question. While filming in Chicago, what is the funniest side hustle that you guys encountered?
That's really good, man. That's a great question. There's just so many, because if you go to a lot of corners, there's always kids selling like candy and stuff. You know, one of my favorite side hustles actually was this kid who sold homemade peanut butter cookies. And
and you're like, how are they? And he's like, really, I have a peanut allergy. How do you even know these are good?
They were really, I love them. They were really good. And I think I bought too many of them because he was even a little concerned because I bought so many.
He was like, I can't sell to you no more.
Yeah, he would literally
I'm cutting you off.
He would go store. He's like, hey man, you eating me out of my product, bro. I was like, I need some of them cookies, my man. But yeah, he would go store to store selling them. And I think he was like 16 or 17. And I got to tell you, the reason I love that hustle, and I think it goes to our show, is because he ain't hurting nobody.
He's 17?
He's about 16. He's a young kid. He's like a high school kid. And he ain't hurting nobody. And I love that he had made a decision to have an entrepreneurial interest that also was something positive and didn't, you know, bring, you know, some sadness
chaos,
or some misery to somebody.
Yeah.
So I love something.
But it brought you a little sadness. I saw you the next day.
Well, I had a sugar coma. I ate a lot of
You crashed pretty hard.
Yeah. I think I got his number too. That's really, he's not trying to talk to me.
You texted him. Yeah. You're like, why you ghosting me? I want them cookies.
I did. He ain't hit me back yet. It's all good. I'm going to find him though.